Hello, everyone, and welcome to our program titled All Things Energy for AFS Members. My name is Carrie Shepard, Marketing Analytics Manager for APPI Energy, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. Please note that all participant lines are muted. You may submit your question anytime during the session by using the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. Our presenter today is Drew Pangborn, Senior Energy Consultant for APPI Energy. Joining us as well is Ben Yates, Vice President of Business Development with AFS. Welcome, Ben. Let's get started.
Thank you, Carrie, and good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to take a few minutes to introduce our presenter today, Drew Pangborn. APPI is our recently endorsed energy consultant to help AFS members like you save money and create budget certainty for your businesses. While they provide electricity and natural gas procurement, last year they began rolling out the Energy Solutions Division for efficiency projects and improved sustainability. I hope you all enjoy the program and look forward to any of your feedback afterwards.
Okay, if everyone's ready, Ben, if you give me the green light, we can go ahead and get started.
I say go for it, Drew.
First, I just want to take a quick minute and thank everyone tremendously for their time here this afternoon. APPI as a whole organization is beyond thrilled and extremely excited about this opportunity to partner with AFS and essentially provide you with these free member benefit procurement, consulting, efficiency, and sustainability solutions that we'll go over just very briefly today. It's my goal to keep this relatively short, maybe 20, 25 minutes at most, because we certainly understand the importance of, well, running your foundries here. That's one thing that we've essentially strided on for all these years is working on your behalf when it makes the most sense for you to tackle these various procurement and efficiency solutions. So with that, we will dive right into things. And I wanted to give us just kind of a brief overview of what exactly we'll be talking about today on a pretty high-end level. As Ben had just mentioned, the advent a year or so ago here of our energy solutions team is extremely critical and important for AFS members to know about, whether you're in a regulated or deregulated market. We'll go over a little bit of that here in a minute. I think it's ever so important as well to talk about the energy industry today as a whole, really what's transpired over the last couple of years, but most importantly, what has this pandemic had as far as an impact on energy prices and what should we expect moving forward. And lastly, we'll touch on, again, as Ben had mentioned previously, our core competency, in-house core competency, which is electricity, natural gas procurement in deregulated markets all across the country. So with that, I just did want to give you just a very quick idea, general overview of what we can offer on the solution side. There's two pieces to your energy equation, if you will. There's the supply portion, the kWh consumption, if you will, which is the more or less the procurement piece. But then there's this kW, the demand portion of it, which can really yield some fantastic results as far as savings opportunities are concerned if you're willing to put forth the time, effort, and finances essentially in order to make these capital expenditures and upgrades for your foundry. It's just kind of a broad paintbrush overview of all that we're able to offer on the solutions and efficiency side. I'll go through these one by one here in just a quick minute, just to kind of go over, again, what would make the most sense more than likely for AFS members and foundries across the country. But it includes, of course, LED lighting, renewables, demand response projects. Some of you may already be familiar with that. Of course, solar photovoltaic arrangements, solar PV systems are hot and heavy in certain markets right now. CHP systems, combined heat and power, battery and artificial intelligence is starting to take hold as a viable solution in some other markets across the country, mainly out here in the western part of the United States. And also the advent of online data capture and utility bill management services. But we can start real quickly at the top. This is an LED lighting retrofit. I know this isn't necessarily new groundbreaking news to anyone who's looked at ways to cut costs at the foundry in the past. But what we found over the last couple of years, number one, the immense amount of opportunity to reduce costs on the demand side associated with an LED retrofit is immense, fantastic to say the least. But also the incentives that are available and technological upgrades that have occurred over the last few years has made this opportunity for commercial and industrial customers really across the country. This is almost like low-hanging fruit and an easy one to pick up and see almost immediate cost reduction or savings on. But the process that is outlined here on this particular slide, you'll find that this is a relatively similar approach to all of our scope or suite of services that we offer here at APPI: unbiased, independent, ethical procurement and consulting solutions. So instead of just bringing you the results, holding your hand in the process and bringing back the results from one LED lighting supplier or provider, I should say, we're here to help you navigate that maze, but bring back multiple vendor sources along with analysis and recommendations going forward, as well as what sort of rebates and incentives might be available depending upon your geographic region, state, utility levels, etc. It's also important to note here, some of you may not be aware of the idea of on-bill funding that's available for these incentives and upgrades surrounding LEDs. A lot of energy suppliers on the electricity side are more than happy, more than willing to essentially bridge the gap here and combine these two pieces, the power purchase agreement side in and along with an LED lighting retrofit. Doesn't necessarily matter the start date of the actual energy contract they're referencing. They can go ahead and get started with an LED retrofit or a project upgrade as soon as possible for your facility. So again, I'll move on to the next topic here, but LED lighting opportunities should be very much of interest to you all, low-hanging fruit for most folks. I mentioned this earlier, the idea of a demand response program. I'm fairly confident that some of you may have already looked into this or taken advantage of this opportunity, but it's basically a voluntary load shed opportunity that CSPs, curtailment service providers, offer to APPI and our organizations that we work with. But essentially what it's in exchange for is during times of peak constraint on your local grid system, suppliers will basically give you a call asking if you're able to shed load, if you're able to, in other words, maybe send the third shift home a little bit early that day, scale back your operations in order to, again, reduce strain and stress off of the grid system, also to, in conjunction, reduce some of your PLC tags, your peak load contribution, your capacity tags on the accounts. DR opportunities are incentivized by monthly or quarterly checks that these CSPs would provide you. And again, it's just for saying that you would voluntarily like to be on this list, and if willing, if possible, we will shed load, curtail load at a given time. It only happens several times throughout the year, if at all. But again, just in exchange for you being on this list, being eligible for this program, you're incentivized immensely every month or every quarter, depending on the CSP, for just being on that list. Now, if you choose to activate when they do ask you, request that you shed load, there's even more incentives available too. These do differ from state to state, market to market. We'd love to talk to you more in depth on a particular DR opportunity for your foundry or organization. I won't spend too much time on at least the system here. I'm sure everyone is somewhat familiar with the idea of a solar array. This can be in several different forms. And again, the incentives differ from state to state, utility to utility right now. It's a hot topic out here in the Western California, and certainly New Jersey as well, but not so much in several other states. But again, would love to dig into that, this opportunity in particular. For any particular foundries, if there is interest in that. Incentives, as I said, they range widely amongst different utilities. And again, we're talking about a rooftop array, ground mount solar, or even a parking array that might make sense to the organization. Something to at least note right now, if there are any foundries listening to this webcast that are within the state of New Jersey, there's a TREC program that's being offered right now. We'd encourage you to look into this, whether it be through APPI or another outfit. We'd strongly encourage you to take advantage of those state incentives that are out there right now. There's robust opportunity available within, again, the state of New Jersey to reduce costs drastically. Most customers can go from paying on average over 10 cents per kilowatt hour, bring this down to maybe 5 cents at most through a solar project. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to help you more with that, but I did want to, at the very least, make that plug for any foundries that might be situated in and around the state of New Jersey at the moment. I wanted to at least bring up this idea of a CHP system as well. You all might be familiar with combined heat and power, but this is absolutely an area of interest to APPI, and we'd love to help connect the dots for your foundry on the next viable step with a combined heat and power system. What surprised me when I learned more about CHP a year or two ago was this idea that really the technology has been around for several decades. It's only here in the last couple of years where they've made the technology so on a micro scale that it can actually fit into for residents or of course commercial and industrial properties on site across the country. But essentially what you're doing there is taking that excess heat from the on-site generation and better utilizing that excess heat, which would have just been wasted off. You can essentially pull it back into the building for lighting purposes, heating purposes, cooling if you have a chiller installed as well. I wanted to at least bring this up, this idea of a CHP system for foundries, because we've had some success with it in the past. And again, just like everything else we've gone over here, we would love to dive deeper into the thought or the idea of perhaps looking into CHP systems for any foundries out there in regulated or deregulated markets. This is another area of interest that's gained a lot of exposure and relevancy here in the last couple of years. It's the idea of battery storage and artificial intelligence. Don't need to spend too much time looking at the illustration to the left, but to the right. But the idea here is that an on-site battery system is taking the peaks out of your energy consumption. So when you have battery storage on site, utilize that battery storage during peak times of the day when there's a lot of stress on the grid and power prices are high. Recharge the power cells once everybody's gone home, and we're talking about maybe from the hours of 12 to 5 a.m. before the first shift starts up yet again. These are solutions, again, with incentives that are robust in certain states, California and Arizona being one of them now. Would love to talk to foundries again about a specific battery and AI opportunity. I mentioned this too earlier, the idea of we can certainly incorporate this into a bill auditing service, but a lot of people aren't aware of, again, going along all with every efficiency and sustainability solution that we've talked about here over the last couple of minutes. This idea of web-based utility bill management has been fantastic over the years for a lot of different members that we've worked with. This idea of just essentially having a one-stop shop for all of their various expenses, operating expenses. You can load in, of course, the gas and electricity information, but you can also load into the online web portal-based system, wastewater bills, water management. What we're able to do with this information, you have easy access to it on minute-to-minute basis. This information is updated by the utility and really can help you decipher, well, if there's any errors or any issues that you might need to uncover, particularly with a specific site. Where are your cost centers? How can we reduce and where can we reduce? So let us know if there is any more interest on your end in learning a bit more about the bill management system. Most of these services, including the utility bill management system, come at no upfront cost. Just to, again, have the first year or so under your belt, you can see, give yourself an idea of the benefits associated with having everything online and streamlined, readily accessible. Let us know. So with that, I will take a step back from the energy solutions side of the presentation today and dive just a little bit more in detail on the industry today. We're here to help you analyze the markets in a variety of different ways. We've tracked and gathered natural gas and electricity data across various utilities, and nationally, I should say, since our inception in 1996. I don't necessarily think it's fair to have to go all the way back far, at least for today's discussion, to tell you what the market's doing. I thought it would be more important to perhaps maybe just give you a quick idea or an update on where power prices have transpired here in the last, say, 6 years. And more importantly, what's happened here specifically in 2020 with the pandemic taking hold in March, and what to expect going forward into 2020. The bottom left-hand chart here, really the only thing I want to harp on here, these are national average prices on the Henry Hub for gas. What I want to focus on is really just this idea of volatility being incredibly present, and it's always present across the industry. If you're not taking the time, effort, and resources to really navigate this and again, try and lock in at the bottom or close to the bottom, you're missing out on some incredible opportunities here. And at the end of the day, we'd never expect you as a foundry to stay on top of this day in and day out. That's exactly why AFS has endorsed APPI, for our attention to detail and again, minute-to-minute data updates on these various gas and electricity procurement needs for the foundry. So I just want to at least leave you with this idea of extreme amount of volatility in the market landscape leading up to 2020. But this also dovetails perfectly into really what's happened in late 19, stepping into 2020, and again, what we can expect going into 21 and beyond. Almost like a perfect storm, for lack of a better term. We had one of the warmest winters on record across the country in 2019. Pair that with a pandemic taking effect just at the tail end of winter. So you have a robust amount of gas and electricity storage already in the ground and ready to go. Pair that with demand absolutely tanking given stay-at-home provisions across the country and obviously curtailed production across most of the country in a variety of different industries, and of course, metal melting being one of them. We almost have this perfect storm where, again, there's ample amount of supply, ample amount of storage on hand, and now we have production almost dropping to the floor and demand is there too. We've hit mid to late June now, I forget the exact day, but we've hit a 25-year low in natural gas pricing. To say that that's a phenomenal opportunity to have your electricity and gas bills reviewed for a competitive opportunity or supplier purchasing initiatives, that's the one call to action that I'd like to make in today's call. But what I would like to at least share with you is this top right-hand chart here with NGI data. What you can see here is that prices are starting to tick upward. It's a little bit of this warmer summer that we've had. So the demand for cooling purposes has obviously picked up a great deal here in the last couple of weeks. But it's also speculators and analysts telling us that the economy is slowly but surely, they have thoughts anyway, that the economy is getting back on track. Production is getting back to where it needs to be. I'm not here to say that this virus is behind us by any means. I think we're all dealing with a new norm going forward. But as far as the energy markets are concerned, they are responding from hitting this all-time low point. We've had the lowest rig count in the US recorded history right now. So essentially what that breaks down to is, again, gas and oil drillers have ample amounts in the ground. They're not going to dig for it unless it makes sense, unless they can turn a profit off of it. And we're starting to see the markets turn around again. They're not that far off from the 25-year low. So again, we'd encourage you to give us a call or any outfit and take a look at what the competitive markets can bear at this point in time, regardless of when any sort of current power purchase agreement may expire. I'll take a minute too, this is a good dovetail. This is a good way to maybe talk about, well, where we're gathering our data and what we're doing with this data. Through the advent of our sister organization, the Energy Research Council, they've been instrumental. ERC combined with data that we're receiving regularly from the Energy Information Administration, NYMEX, CME Group, NGI data, which you saw the chart on before. All of these analytical tools and benchmarking tools are here to essentially help us, help you answer two important questions when it comes to whether it's an efficiency solution or primarily power purchase agreements for gas and electricity. When do I buy? And how long should I buy for? So with the advent of the ERC, we're essentially able to provide you with this historical data, historical tracking information to, again, help you make a better informed decision when it does come time to take a look at these various expenses for your foundry and the organization. Just to share with you two quick charts here. One being, we can look at this on a very macro and micro level. A micro example would be at the bottom here, JCP&L rate classifications and how average benchmark pricing has compared to JCP&L, which by the way, it's a utility zone within the state of New Jersey, Jersey Central Power and Light. So we can break this down to specific utility zones and see how average benchmark pricing, competitive supplier benchmark pricing has compared to that utility's or your utility's default price to compare, stemming back a variety of years. That's just one way to look at the data. Something I want to note here, if you're not already aware, there's a robust amount of opportunity. There's only once or twice have we seen in the last 6 or so years that default tariffs behind JCP&L are slightly lower than where the competitive market and competitive suppliers are showing their bids to be at. Another example of a quick chart is these are just national trends in power prices, but this is a chart, benchmark chart showing the percentage change over time on a national level. So even this kind of dovetails into the discussion and charts from the prior slide talking about market conditions being down, being low as to compared to, say 2 years ago, back in the summer of 18. These all can be, of course, customized and tailored specifically to your organization's load usage needs and of course, geographic location too. I will leave it at the industry piece for today. I'd love to dive into that a little bit more. Please give us a call if you do want to talk about that a little bit more, and we can do just that. We'll take it to the third step of this webinar today and talk a little bit more about our effective procurement process here at APPI. This color-coded illustration map to the right, it's really just a better barometer that we wanted to share with you all of the identifiable opportunity that will exist behind each state. It doesn't mean that we can't highlight some additional competitive solutions for you, but when it comes to, again, this idea of electricity and natural gas procurement, we are limited in some degree as to where we can perform these actions. Deregulated states, which you will see highlighted here, well, mutually deregulated states for gas as well as electricity are highlighted on this chart. The gray states located or color-coded here would identify, well, really minimal opportunities, partially deregulated to some degree. There might be some barriers to entry for us to capitalize on a solution in these particular markets. But again, just wanted to give you all at the very least just a kind of a quick idea as to what we'd be able to uncover for your organization. Something to note, efficiency, which we talked about earlier in the program, is available nationwide, regardless of where you're located. If it's behind an electric utility or a local cooperative, we can still help you with analyzing those bids as well as the incentives that might be available. So again, solutions-based, we can help you anywhere and everywhere in the continental US. On the procurement piece, that's when we would want, we have to be a little bit more selected just because of state restrictions and legislation. But taking a quick step back from this, if you are located in one of these service territories and would like us to take a look at solutions on the power piece, the electricity or gas piece, this just kind of breaks down the procurement process as a whole. Once we capture this data from you, and how, when I say capture the data, it typically starts, if you were interested in having us look at this for your facilities, it typically starts with capturing or gathering most recent month's electricity or gas invoice for each particular account within the Foundry. Take that information, analyze the energy data and usage associated with that, send it out to various top tier suppliers to request their price discovery on. It's important to note here, one of the key differentiators of APPI is the fact that there's a lot of noise. If you may already be aware of the amount of noise in the energy supplier arena, we are exclusive to working with only the utmost top tier suppliers that have been extremely vetted by our in-house executive VP and corporate counsel, Mike Payne. So in other words, knowing that the AFS, we have the AFS backing, we would not be implementing or providing solutions to you from these recommended suppliers if we didn't know that they were sound and again of critical importance and favorable when compared to other members of the supplier community. So at least keep that in mind when considering APPI. From here, once we do gather the price discovery, which I'll share with you those deliverables here in just a quick second as an example, but once we get that, the price discovery, we're here to essentially negotiate the price and terms on your behalf. If and when, again, this is a completely contingency-based program. So it's up to you as to whether or not you'd like to proceed with a solution. But if so, we're here to constantly monitor the market and your accounts on your behalf. Whether you do implement an option or not, it's our bread and butter. It's our day in and day out project to help you better manage these solutions. So if we see a dip in the market, if we see things starting to inch upward, we're going to let you know that as to how it relates to your upcoming expiration or a new opportunity for us to consider going forward. Again, this dovetails right into this idea of identifying future renewal solutions on the accounts. It's not like, this isn't like other things you've done in the past. We're dealing with futures markets and commodities here. So you have the ability to execute on a price now at today's market conditions, favorable market conditions that may not take effect on your particular accounts until next fall, until spring of 23 for that matter. Suppliers are willing to work with you in that regard. And again, you may receive a call from us a little bit earlier than expected. And that's because we're here to identify these attractive market opportunities to continuously reduce costs for your Foundry. This is what I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, this idea of a very quick, easy to read and understand sample proposal. It looks a little convoluted up front here, but I just wanted to point this out because at the end of the day, this is really what APPI prides ourselves in, providing you with streamlined solutions from various top tier suppliers that are given same time, same day. So it's one thing to make an apples to apples comparison, which we've learned in the industry since doing this since 1996. It's another thing to make a green apples to green apples comparison. Cost components within the supply piece have changed. The way that suppliers monitor these and fix these costs for you have changed slightly here in the last couple of years. So I wanted to give this quick example just to show you there's many different ways a supplier can provide you an offer. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's the most attractive or the lowest price. So through the notes, through connecting with APPI, we're here to, again, help you navigate this maze and determine what makes the most sense for your organization. If we need to develop a certain pricing structure or parameter, we'll do just that. This is what we like to call at APPI our circle of life, if you will. I've already kind of gone over our effective procurement process, so I will make it rather quick, but it's this idea of powerful and holistic energy management solutions. Again, even if you're not a customer, we're here to provide you market updates and monitor what we can as far in regards to your accounts on a daily or weekly basis. Once you become a customer, the outer circle essentially clicks in or connects with you. And that's essentially what we're here to do for you over the course of the term in the contract. Essentially holding your hand, helping you every step of the way, understand the opportunities that are here in front of you, And ultimately, again, the decision is yours as to what you'd like to do. We might point you in what we think is a favorable direction, but at the end of the day, it's your call as to whether or not you'd like to implement and proceed with a solution that APPI provides. I'll be very brief here, but I did want to take a quick minute to just talk about a real differentiator on APPI's platform, and it's our customer service team. To say that they're top notch and do go far and above the beyond the call of duty would be an understatement. We have a senior director that advises our customer service team. It's been with the organization for at least 12 years now, highly respected. And what I want to get at here is this idea of, if you have an issue, if you have a problem, if you have a concern, a question with the billing, with the supplier that you're interacting with that we've connected you through, let our customer service team do the work for you. It's amazing to me what I found at 12, 13 years here at APPI. When customers try and take on a project like this to get an answer from the utility or to get a bill correction, let's say, it's amazing to me how quickly we can turn around and get them a deliverable through our customer service team versus them going about this project on their own. We have key internal contacts at most of these top tier suppliers that we work with. So again, getting you answers to your questions, getting you these necessary solutions, it's again handled efficiently and swiftly by our customer service team. And that's of course one of the value adds that we can bring to the table and have for many, many years now. If you were to look at a solution through APPI, know that we're here to do everything on the back end. I already went over the idea of supplier interaction for you, but also this idea of a seamless behind the scenes transition between one supplier to the next. We've also had great success with identifying tax exemptions here as the slide states here. And also the idea of identifying, whether it be through myself or our customer service team, alerting you as to when attractive market opportunities are available. And I'll lastly kind of talk very briefly on APPI as a whole. Again, been involved in the industry. APPI has, since its inception in 1996. In fact, the founding fathers of the organization are still active and readily available, present in every day-to-day decision here at APPI. Not just AFS, but several other associations from across the country have endorsed APPI over the years, over 160, as a matter of fact. To name a few, we've had a great, robust relationship with Non-Ferrous Founders Society over the years, as well as National Association of Manufacturers and Metal Treating Institute as well. I just wanted to at least mention that to you so you at least have an idea that, yes, we've worked with many foundries in the past, have some great success stories to share with you specific to foundries. So let us know if we can talk more about that with you and your organization. To date, this brings us to just under 35,000 commercial accounts across the country that we help manage. Again, that translates into over 10 billion kilowatt hours that are currently under management for electricity purposes. Over 20 million decatherms of natural gas is currently under APPI's portfolio that we're managing on a day-to-day basis. That's all I have for you today as far as the slides are concerned. My one, again, call to action at this point for members would be to perhaps, again, based on prevailing market conditions, take a look at your current electricity and gas statements, give us a call or your current outfit. We'd love to help you out with an unbiased opinion through AFS. At the end of the day, again, this is a no harm, no foul approach to have us get back to you with an unbiased opinion and some valuable insight on what to consider going forward. It would start by, again, if you wanted to provide us with an electricity or natural gas bill, that's step one. Just based off of this information, we can dig a little deeper and figure out what competitive advantages might be available. So I will end my discussion there. I will open it back up to Ben. I'm hoping that we have at least a quick question or two that I can address.
Thank you, Drew and Ben. Again, at this point, we do invite participants to ask questions through our webcast system. If you have difficulty sending your question, please email them to Drew at dpangborn@appenergy.com, as you see on your screen.
Drew, just for my own purposes, what happens if an AFS member is currently in a contract that doesn't expire for a while? Say it's like an October 2022 contract. How can APPI help?
Sure. No, it's a really good question. Ben, so again, I go back to this idea of analyzing futures prices as well. We would just simply position the RFP, the request for pricing, amongst members of the supplier community to have this actionable and effective now, but take advantage of, again, that mentioned start date, I believe you said was October of 2022. So even with a start date, a current contract start date out into the near future, we can highlight solutions, benchmarking tools and solutions that would help you, again, make this better informed decision on whether or not now is the time to capitalize on an opportunity. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
All right, Drew, we do have another question for you. Earlier in the presentation, you talked about lighting retrofits. Could you give a little more detail about what an optimal lighting retrofit client may look like?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Really, it comes down to a couple of things. One would be burn time, primarily burn time. And what that translates to is how long are the lights turned on? If you're running multiple shifts, if you're essentially a 24/7 operation, that's ideal as far as we're concerned, as well as vendors might be concerned. That's where you're going to see the most bang for your buck. Square footage obviously comes into play too. How much of a scalable size are we actually looking at? How many ballasts, how many bulbs are we looking at replacing here? I would say it's those two are critically important, as well as, I forgot to mention this, depends on when the last time they had their lights looked at. What we found, the industry says about 5 years or so. Every 5 years or so, it's probably a good idea to have your lighting systems looked at for possible efficiency upgrades. I would say maybe 5 to 10 years. If you haven't had it looked at in 10 years or so, I think you'll be surprised at the affordability of these LED retrofits, and the funding, again, as I mentioned earlier, but also the technology aspect of them. A lot has changed here in the last couple of years, within the last couple of years, as far as what sort of illumination, what sort of bang for your buck you can get with an LED retrofit. So again, I would say square footage, power burn in particular, and also the technology piece. When was the last time you really had your facility looked at in that regard?
Great, thank you. It looks like we have no additional questions for you at this time. We'd like to thank everyone for participating today. A special thank you to Ben Yates for joining us, as well as our presenter, Drew Pangborn. Again, if you have any questions regarding today's program or would like to submit a utility bill to Drew, please do so at dpangborn@apppienergy.com. Today's program is copyright 2020 APPI Energy with all rights reserved. This concludes today's program. You may now disconnect. Thank you.
Thank you.